The fashion world went absolutely silent and then erupted. A 20-year-old tennis player from the Philippines walked onto the most prestigious red carpet in global sport, wearing a gown that no one in that building had ever encountered before. And every celebrity, every champion, every decorative legend standing inside the Palacio de Cibeles turned to look. She did not wear a European designer. She did not reach for luxury brands draping every other athlete that evening. She wore the soul of an entire archipelago, stitched together, shipped across continents, completed in less than 1 week, and she wore it without flinching. This is not simply a fashion story. This is a declaration of identity so fierce, so unexpected, and so perfectly timed that it stopped the Oscars of sport in its tracks and forced the global stage to acknowledge something it had been slow to recognize. Stay until the very end, because what Alex Eala did in Madrid on April 20th, 2026 will be discussed long after the trophies are forgotten. You have to understand the weight of the room before you can understand the magnitude of what she carried into it. The Laureus World Sports Awards are not merely prestigious. Prestigious is a word for hotels and universities. The Laureus ceremony occupies an entirely distinct category, the gathering where human achievement across every sport on the planet converges in one architectural monument and announces itself to history. Since its founding in 2000, the award has been presented to the most extraordinary athletes Earth has produced: Roger Federer, Serena Williams, Novak Djokovic, Rafael Nadal, Simone Biles, Lionel Messi. The statuette, crafted by Cartier, heavy with silver and gold-finished gravity, 30 centimeters of sculpted human ambition, has passed through hands that have reshaped sporting civilization. The 2026 edition, held at the breathtaking Palacio de Cibeles in Madrid, assembled precisely that caliber of humanity. Carlos Alcaraz, the Spanish phenomenon who had consumed both the French Open and the US Open in 2025 before finishing the year ranked #1, was the dominant figure of the evening. Aryna Sabalenka, who had defended her position at the summit of women's tennis through 3 Grand Slam finals and a US Open championship, collected her own statuette with the composed authority of someone who had earned every syllable of recognition. Lamine Yamal, football's most meteoric 17-year-old, stood in the room. Paris Saint-Germain collected the team award after their first-ever UEFA Champions League conquest. Novak Djokovic, 5-time Laureus winner and one of the most recognizable human beings on the planet, co-hosted the ceremony alongside freestyle skiing's Eileen. Nadia Comaneci, the Romanian gymnast whose perfect 10 scores at the 1976 Montreal Olympics permanently altered what humanity understood about athletic possibility, received a Lifetime Achievement Award from Simone Biles herself. This was the room. This was the congregation of verified greatness. And into this space walked Alex Eala, 20 years old, ranked 44 in the world, wearing a gown assembled in a matter of days by her uncle in the Philippines, shipped to Spain just in time for the ceremony. She did not shrink. She did not perform humility. She stepped onto that carpet as if she had been preparing for this specific moment since childhood, because, in her own words, she had. Here is where this story reveals something extraordinary about the architecture of Alex Eala's character. She had a dream, not vague, not approximate, specific, precise. She had decided, long before any invitation arrived, that when the moment of her first major red carpet materialized, she would wear a Filipina. Not eventually, not if it works out, when. The certainty was absolute. I always had this dream. When I'm on a red carpet, I'll wear what's called a Filipina, she told Tennis Channel in an interview that immediately cascaded across every Filipino media platform on Earth. It's my first major red carpet, and this is the time. The Filipina is not decoration, it's not costume. Among Filipinos, the traditional formal attire carries centuries of cultural identity, a garment that survived colonization, adapted through independence, and emerged as one of the most distinctive expressions of Philippine heritage in existence. The butterfly sleeves, the piña fabric woven from pineapple fibers with a delicacy that no synthetic material replicates. The particular architecture of the bolero layered over flowing material. Wearing it on a global stage is not fashion, it is testimony. And the execution of this vision happened at a pace that made the achievement even more remarkable. Eala reached out to her uncle, Rhett Eala, a renowned Filipino fashion designer operating internationally, and communicated her desire. The design process, the construction, the finishing, the packaging, all of it happened in days, not weeks, days. The completed gown was shipped from the Philippines to Spain, arriving precisely in time for the ceremony. What emerged on that red carpet was a flowing beige chiffon creation featuring a tasteful waist cutout paired with a piña bolero adorned with butterfly sleeves, the iconic silhouette that marks the Filipina as unmistakably itself among the universe of global formal wear. She also shared a TikTok preview of the look set to a Filipino song. The caption she chose for her Instagram presence that evening read, "Playing Princess for the evening." But this was not performance. The princess framing was playful deflection. What she actually did was carry a nation's soul into a room full of the world's most celebrated athletes, and she did it deliberately, joyfully, and without apology. Stop and think about that for a moment. At 20 years old, on her first major red carpet, surrounded by names that have dominated global sports for decades, she chose visibility for her culture over comfort in anonymity. She chose statement over safety.
But here is the detail that separates Alex Eala from every other compelling fashion moment in recent sports memory. The next morning, the day after the Laureus ceremony, after the photographs and the reactions and the viral circulation and the cultural conversations, she walked onto a tennis court at the WTA 1000 Madrid Open and defeated Anastasia Pavlyuchenkova of Russia in straight sets. Not symbolically, literally. She played professional tennis at the highest level against a seasoned opponent and won. She then prepared to face Elise Mertens in the following round, with subsequent commitments at the WTA 1000 Rome Open and the WTA 125 Parma Ladies Open in Italy as part of her clay campaign building toward what will be her second Grand Slam of the season at Roland Garros. The woman who had stopped the Laureus ceremony with a Filipiniana heritage gown, who had stood photographed between Djokovic and Eileen, captioning herself as sandwiched between greatness, went directly back to the business of becoming one of the greatest. This is what makes the Madrid moment something beyond a single evening of beautiful imagery. Eala had already demonstrated at Indian Wells that she could absorb a crushing defeat, 6-0 in the second set against Linda Noskova, and emerge from it with clarity rather than collapse, describing her experience as something that will have a positive impact on my progression. She had already shown that her identity as a competitive athlete and her identity as a cultural representative existed not in tension, but in alignment. The Filipiniana was not a distraction from her tennis, it was an expression of the same interior resolve that allows her to fight back from 4-5 down in a third set at midnight in a desert. Both represent someone who knows precisely who she is, where she comes from, and refuses to minimize either in service of easier acceptance. At 44 in the world rankings with the clay season ahead of her, Eala's competitive trajectory points toward conversations she has not yet fully entered. Conversations about Grand Slam titles, about sustained top 10 membership, about the kind of career that generates its own Laureus nominations rather than attending the ceremony as a celebrated guest. Those conversations are approaching faster than the tennis establishment has acknowledged. Here is the question worth sitting with. When historians of sport and culture look back at the 2026 Laureus World Sports Awards in Madrid, what will they identify as the defining image of the evening? The Alcaraz statuette? The Sabalenka recognition? The Yamal breakthrough? These are legitimate and significant moments, authentic acknowledgments of genuine athletic excellence across a remarkable year of sport. Or will they land on the photograph of a 20-year-old Filipino tennis player in a beige piña bolero gown standing at the entrance of the Palacio de Cibeles, having fulfilled a promise she had made to herself long before the invitation arrived? The Filipiniana was not the loudest moment of the evening. It generated no controversy. It required no defense. It simply existed, present,
immovable and undeniable, and let that existence speak with the quiet authority that genuine cultural pride always carries when it arrives without anxiety. Alex Eala walked into a room designed to honor what humanity has achieved at the highest altitude of physical competition, and she wore her heritage as the most natural accessory she possessed. She took a photograph with two of the most globally recognized athletes on Earth and called herself sandwiched between greatness, with the lightness of someone who has not yet decided whether that description fully applies to them, or who suspects it does and is simply not in a hurry to make a public announcement. She then went back to winning tennis matches. The Filipiniana gown has returned to wherever garments go between their moments of significance. The piña bolero, the butterfly sleeves, the beige chiffon that flowed across the Laureus red carpet, they exist now in photographs that circulated across every platform simultaneously, in the memory of athletes and legends who shared that evening, in the expanding cultural record of what Philippine identity looks like when carried with absolute confidence onto the world's most attentive stage. She captioned it, "Playing Princess" for the evening, but a princess plays a role temporarily assumed. What Eala demonstrated in Madrid was something permanent, the character of someone who carries their origin not as context to be explained or heritage to be performed, but as the simplest possible answer to the question of who she is. The fashion world was stunned. The sports world was moved. The Philippine community around the globe was something more specific and more profound than either of those reactions. They recognized themselves, represented at the summit, dressed in their own beauty, refusing to be anyone other than exactly what they are. Now the question for you, watching. In a world where athletes routinely erase cultural specificity in pursuit of universal appeal, was Alex Eala's choice the most strategic move of her public career so far, or was it simply the most honest? Drop your answer below. The conversation, like everything surrounding Alex Eala, is just getting started. On April 20th, 2026, the Laureus World Sports Awards celebrated the greatest athletes on Earth inside one of Madrid's most magnificent buildings. Carlos Alcaraz won. Arya Sabalenka won. Lamine Yamal collected a historic distinction. Nadia Comaneci received a lifetime of recognition from Simone Biles, and Alex Eala arrived in a Filipiniana gown designed by her uncle, shipped from the Philippines in days, worn on her first major red carpet with the composure of someone who had always known this was coming, then walked straight from that carpet to a tennis court and kept winning matches. That is the full story, and if it moved you, if it made you proud, if it made you think, subscribe, because wherever Alex Eala goes next, this channel will be there to tell it exactly as it deserves to be told.